Nigeria's healthcare sector is facing a myriad of challenges which need to be addressed, from infrastructure decay to challenges in importing equipment to face-offs between HMOs and healthcare providers to getting widespread universal healthcare coverage across Nigeria to improving budget allocations for health. These issues remain a top priority for Africa's largest economy. Joining us from Dubai to speak further is the CEO of AXA Mansard Health, Mr. Tope Adeniyi. Good morning. Well, good afternoon to you, sir, over there in Dubai. Thanks for joining us. I wanted to first ask you, since the outbreak of the COVID pandemic, have you seen, has it galvanized strides in public and private sector improvements in healthcare delivery in Nigeria?
All right, thank you very much. And then good morning, Nigeria, and good afternoon, Dubai here. Honestly, COVID has really had a major impact on Nigerians, as well as every part of Africa. Since the outbreak of COVID, we have also seen a lot of interest in both private and public sector. The public sector is more aware and putting a lot of policies, trying to put a lot of opportunities in place, just like the $100 million fund, the various CBN intervention, to be able to enable healthcare teams and infrastructure providers to be able to develop their systems. And that is accessible through the CBN network. A lot of people, a lot of hospitals, a lot of healthcare players are accessing that fund. On the private space, there are quite a lot of things been happening. So we have seen the likes of telemedicine opportunity gaining ground in the market so that people can actually make calls and get access to healthcare providers, consultations. Now, for example, at AXA Mansard, we've also launched opportunity for people to be able to do mobile diagnostics. So we provide mobile diagnostics for people's homes so that they can actually get checked. So that, again, is helping because technology is now being adopted much widely, and that is reducing costs as well as giving more access to people for quality healthcare. So you have pharmacy delivery of drugs, you have mobile diagnostic, you have teleconsultations, and awareness is increasing. And so we also have a lot of new pools of talented companies coming up, startups, to be able to render services across the value chain of healthcare. That is helping innovation to grow very rapidly, adoption increasing more than it could have been without COVID. So on the positive side, we could see the public sector creating more enabling environment, while the private sector are seizing and multiplying all of the needed infrastructure to ensure we take advantage of improving the healthcare all together in Nigeria. So I think that is happening a lot, and we require to see much more happening in the coming days.
Excellent. As far as much more happening in the coming days, weeks, months, and so on, where does public policy play a role? Is private sector pretty much at the mercy of policies to implement everything that you've mentioned?
Yes, so we need a lot of steam more in the public policy. For example, one of the major areas that we require the government to be able to accelerate the passage of the law is on mandatory health insurance bill, such a way that the health insurance will become a must-have for everybody, every Nigerian, every corporate player, every SME, and every worker. And that will enable us to have structured healthcare system, because in the current situation where you only have it as a need to have for people, only people who desire to have it don't have it, and people actually wait the time to get sick before they go to the hospital. That always have a very strong burden upon the healthcare infrastructure, and the health indices and the outcome will always be low. But when we have mandatory health insurance, you will see that people actually proactively take care of their health without thinking of how to pay. And that is very fundamental in universal health coverage. We need the government to really accelerate that and get the bill passed into law. We also need the government to also encourage a lot of improvement on the current the subsidy granted onto the importation duty on healthcare equipment in Nigeria. During the COVID, government reduced it to maybe about 0 and later about 5%. But the reality today we see is the fact that they're still charging a lot of import duty on healthcare infrastructure. That is putting a lot of pressure on costs, and that we need government to intervene a lot on that area so that we can have accessible healthcare that is also affordable to the ordinary Nigerian. So we have a lot of things that the government needs to support us in doing. Awareness is also part of it. Government needs to support the private sector in increasing the awareness on coming into the healthcare structure healthcare system that is structured both in the demand side, which is insurance, as well as the supply side.
Excellent. I want to ask, we had a conversation earlier this week on HMOs, and there's been some back and forth between themselves and healthcare providers. How do you assess the situation with the HMOs, and what needs to happen to improve their service delivery?
So there are different areas that have affected the HMO side. HMO, by the way, is Health Maintenance Organization. These are the health institutions that are saddled about pulling the demand side, helping the customers to be able to access healthcare and through insurance system. So HMOs in Nigeria have been doing a lot of things around making sure that they gather and galvanize a lot of customers to be able to access healthcare. The challenges that HMO face today is the challenge of the fact that they still have low patronage compared to the population and compared to the kind of pricing that would have made sense to the providers. So the providers' inflation side of medical equipment of drugs continue without waiting for anyone. Medical inflation continues to increase, but HMOs are not able to galvanize enough number of people to be able to meet up with the medical inflation, and people cannot always pay the increase in the medical inflation. So what then does HMO need to do is what actually we continue to campaign. HMO need to increase in technology adoption such a way that the administration costs, both at the hospital side as well as the HMO side, can reduce, and that will help. Also, adoption and adoption of health insurance by public when they are able to access purchase of health insurance easily also need to be improved by the HMO. Partnership with a lot of retail players like the telcos, like the banks, should increase by the HMO so that access to customers will increase at a lower cost. When we do a lot of administration at a lower cost, it will ultimately reduce the cost of healthcare and enable a lot of more people to access quality healthcare. And of course, we must also educate our clients more, because the clients need to know that medical inflation continues to increase. And so what we paid on drug last year when dollar rate was at 400 in the government rate, by the end of last year, it's already going to about 435. So there's already medical inflation. There's already a lot of macroeconomic index that really shown us that the cost of healthcare has increased, and so also the premium also must increase. So HMO must not shy away from the fact of giving customers information about the consumption of their healthcare and the need for them to adjust premium so that we will not have a disruptive system that will not make the healthcare providers able to serve again and again. So HMO needs to be bold, HMO needs to adopt technology, HMOs also need to educate the consumers to show them the utilization of healthcare, the inflation of all of the medical services and drugs and all of that the providers use, and to be able to convince the customers the need for them to adjust the premium to be able to cover their healthcare costs.
Thank you. Very, very in-depth there. So, in fact, you've preempted my next question, because I was going to throw a random number at you. 3,000 naira a month. Is that enough to get reasonable health coverage? If we review costs, based on your answer, it looks like costs have to be revised upwards or as market conditions change.
Okay, so for us, because we actually want to make sure that everybody comes into the structured healthcare, with 3,000 naira a month, you will still get basic healthcare cover, even probably with a little bit less. It's just that the measure or the scope or the benefit limit you're going to get is going to differ from the one of 5,000 a month or 10,000 a month. But with 3,000 cover a month, 3,000 naira a month, you still get basic healthcare cover that will cover you if you're in a group, that will cover you maternity, basic healthcare, malaria treatment, primary health care, including admissions and limited surgery and all of the basic things that you require. So just like you save money on a daily basis if you're a trader, or you save money on a monthly basis if you're a salary earner, you can also save money on a monthly or weekly basis and be able to purchase as big. And you will notice that a lot of money that we spend even on hair time, on other things, is usually more than 3,000 naira. And when the chips are down, the money we end up spending in the hospital goes above the 36,000 naira in a year. And so that's very wise for us to be able to put aside 3,000 naira a month, 5,000 naira a month to be able to set aside for our healthcare. And the good news is that HMO like AXA Health, a leading HMO in Nigeria, has made an affordable health insurance such a way that you could actually access 3,000 naira a month, 4,000 naira a month, even 2,000 naira a month, just to make sure that everybody has the basic healthcare cover that you will need it, particularly at the time where you fall ill, and without thinking of how to look for money anymore. So I think you are right. Your figure is not only arbitrary, it's not arbitrary, it's actually real and it's practicable.
All right, good stuff. I was going to ask you about inflation, but you've already answered it in a prior answer. You mentioned inflation and impact on medical costs. So let me skip ahead to markets. Healthcare markets outside Lagos and Abuja, are they viable since you've come into the nation and surveyed things?
Okay, so healthcare market is viable across Nigeria because everybody needs healthcare. So and it depends on the way you see it. Right now, as I speak to you, all the 200 million Nigerians access one form of healthcare or the other, and they spend money. Some spend money on the regular healthcare structured institutions, while some go to the patent store, some go to the prayer houses, some go to the street hawkers. Everybody spends money on healthcare. The total consumption of healthcare, for example, in 2021 is about 5 trillion naira. And 75% of that actually is out of pocket that goes into patent store, that goes into street hawkers that are peddling drugs, that goes into one form of healthcare service or the other. So the whole idea is to be able to aggregate properly and structure all of the healthcare givers today so that people can actually do the right thing through insurance system, so that they can have a pool, community health insurance pool, state health insurance pool, private health insurance pool, and all of those together, prepaid pool that will enable people to have access to proper healthcare system. So whether it is Borno State, whether it is Rivers, Yenagoa, whether it is Sokoto, whether it is in Benin Kebbi, whether it is in Ondo, whether it is in Ado Ekiti, you have access to healthcare. And so it's viable everywhere. It's viable in Ijebu-Igbo, it's viable in different part of the country. It's just a matter of being able to pull together, and that's why you see HMOs having branches and spread across board, and also leveraging on existing retail network like the likes of Airtel, the likes of MTN. If you go to the AXA website, for example, you will see different points of touch where you can actually buy health insurance. And we have hospitals, clinics, pharmaceutical, where you can have access to all of the healthcare services across Nigeria. AXA, for example, has over 2,000 network providers in every state of the federation. And that's why it's viable, because everywhere healthcare is consumed today in Nigeria, so also investment is viable there. So also infrastructure of healthcare should be deployed to be able to improve the access to health for all Nigerians. So it's viable.
All right. In fact, we had the Chief Financial Officer of MTN yesterday on the show, and he was talking about expanding their coverage. So I can see how these things are intertwined between what the telcos can provide for services like yours. Sensitization campaigns, sir, I want to ask you about, you've mentioned all these states across the country. And I think you mentioned sensitization campaigns earlier. Who bears that responsibility for educating Nigerians? You mentioned earlier, I think you said, folks don't go to the hospital until they get sick. Is that just public sector, or does that responsibility also fall on private players as well?
Yeah, sensitization actually falls on all. It's a collective responsibility. The private sector needs to do more. Health sector needs to do more. Non-health sector needs to do the same. The telcos, the banks, the manufacturers, everyone needs to join hands together, because health is a common challenge and health is a common need. The way HMOs are campaigning for inclusion, for everybody to come into the structured health system, is the same way the telcos should campaign. Is the same way even the radio station, the television station, the media house should join in the campaign actively and continually. Government also needs to do their bit in giving an environment for such campaigns. Everywhere NHIS is doing something, launching, there should be more and more campaign and awareness. In fact, we should actually go into the public institution, educational institution, Ministry of Education, to ensure that part of our curriculum bears the need for health insurance, the need for health inclusion, the need to use, the health infrastructure that is available in Nigeria. So it is a joint responsibility of all stakeholders, INGOs, non-government organizations, churches, mosques, all of religious institutions should actually campaign for healthcare, proper healthcare to be accessible through health insurance and through usage of structured healthcare system. That is the only way for us to have an improved healthcare outcome in Nigeria.
All right, so finally, just a minute to go. So what's your outlook for healthcare in 2022? How do you see things playing out this year?
Challenging year again in 2022, but we believe that we're going to have things a little bit more better because of the commitment of the private sector and also because of a lot of promises from the public sector. We see a lot of technology innovation coming out in 2022. AXA, for example, is leading a lot in that area, in the area of mobile diagnostics, in the area of telemedicine, in the area of more access into distribution platforms so that everyone can have access to basic health insurance across the nation. We are partnering with MTN, Airtel, we are partnering with all the structured large retail, the banks, the GD Bank, the Sterling Bank, and several banks lined up, or such a way that we can have access onto healthcare insurance. So we also see that technology solution is helping. We've launched telehealth, we've launched telemedicine so that people can actually access care through the telephone network before they before complications area where they need to go to the hospital. So we also see a lot of startups coming up again this year to render a lot more than they have been doing before. So we see overall adoption increasing, and we only look forward to see the government also helping us to push the passage of the mandatory bill. This and a lot of conversation continue to happen between the sure that we have a tariff that makes sense, a tariff that works so that all the parties can continue to sustain the healthcare structure in Nigeria. We only look forward to see the best, as we also see that everybody is geared to see that we need to have our homegrown healthcare system. We can't always fly abroad to have healthcare. We have to grow it locally. And there's a lot of investment going on in healthcare. For example, one of the reasons why I'm in Dubai today is to be able to position Nigeria as a very viable country for healthcare investment. And I think we're going to have a lot of this happening in 2022.
All right, we wish you the best of luck. Thank you so much for talking to us, Mr. Tope Adeniyi, CEO of AXA Mansard Health. Appreciate your time, sir.